Hey, how's it going, everybody? Man, it's a little more low key. I think I should do more of these. It's not live, so it's okay. It's okay for me. I get very paranoid. I had it in another video. This video is about it's the differences of Christianity versus just very secular morality. Now, okay, this is gonna be kind of a I guess you could call it a highlight. I guess you could call it um like a just a showing, like some showmanship of sorts. Now, reason why I say all this is I was thinking about it, and at first I'm really trying to do like a renewal, a resetting process, and just trying to reprocess in terms of for the sake of growth, trying to reprocess what the Bible means and clearing my expectations. So, because I had expectations, I had a lot of expectations in regards to reading the Bible. So, I'm sorry, I just wanted to preface it with that. But yeah, back in the day, I used to have this idea of, as I read the scriptures, if the Bible's so sorry, this is gonna distract me a lot. There we go. Yep. Okay, I feel a little more confident. Man, that 5 o'clock shadow. Wow, goodness. So my thought was, if Christianity it tells you to do good things and avoid bad things, what's the big difference between this? Sorry, I think to myself, I'm like, I have a 5 o'clock shadow. Why am I wearing this little bun like that? I'm not sure. I'm practicing it. Sometimes it makes me feel like my hat's finna fall off my head. So that's why. But yeah, it made me think, if Christianity is like tells people to do good and avoid evil, and they have a list of things. I used to have these preconceived notions about what those evil things were, but the Bible clearly tells you the things you shouldn't do versus the things you should. Now, and I always want to explain them, but I don't know them for certain, so I definitely have to just cite them when I see them, and just have a video about that. But I had this idea. Now, and so I was wondering why was this so different? Why was this so different from just regular secular media? Because people tend to say Christianity is great because it has a moral system, and atheists don't really have a moral system that is objective. And while that's true, it doesn't mean that they're immoral. It just means that their morality is very free floating, and it's consensus basis. It's they say they make the argument that it's obvious. There's like obvious tenets to morality, and it's not, because back in the day they had people thrown into lions dens and ripped apart for entertainment. Gladiators, slaves fighting for the sake of amusement. And also, I guess they even won their freedom that way. But it's like, those things aren't today. Those things aren't happening today. Those things just aren't. And the Greece, was it the Romans? I'm still trying to. I've watched some YouTube videos on those. They're very interesting people, and the Grecians too. But I'm not sure what the lions pits were from. Could have been the Romans. But yeah, they did these heinous crimes. I can't imagine us throwing people into lions dens just because they were accused of murder, rape, or something like that. People always say it on comments, they should do X, Y, and Z, A, B, C. And I'm like, you probably shouldn't, or rather wouldn't be the person who would do the dirty jobs. Just like people, we talk a lot about food and stuff, but we're not in the slaughterhouses slaughtering animals. Not to guilt trip anybody. I'm just saying that's just the reality. I don't do that. I like sandwiches and burgers, but I'm not offing a cow right before my eyes and that thing is dying. That's something for another discussion, though, that I probably won't remember, to be honest. Getting back to it. Sorry, I was wondering what that jingle was. So I'm sorry. I was saying the difference is I'm not an atheist. Um, I am definitely a Dad and Thomas occasionally. Um, can I say agnostic sometimes? Perhaps. Um, there's times where I don't know. I have my hills and valleys, but definitely I could consider myself a Thomas, a Dad and Thomas. A pessimist even. Um, but all that stuff, I digress. I especially in this renewal of my mind and such, renewal of understanding the scriptures, taking away my expectations. I'm definitely in process and growth. Um, my perception of these ideas and thoughts, I want them to be better, So I'm definitely growing. I've and also even out of my curiosity, I've took a look at other things. But again, I'm sorry, I keep straying from the point. The point is, the Bible has a lot of simple things to do. They say, keep your mind in good places, renew your mind daily, read that Bible. People think the Bible is oppressive, and I don't think so. I don't think so. Is it very selective? Depends. Is it very does it have prohibitions and barriers? Yes, it does. Does it have a lot of freedoms? Yes, it does. Does it condemn everybody who sins? Yes, it does. There's no sin that's greater than it. But I feel like Christians have beat that dead horse and people aren't listening. But yeah, and I think that's the big difference is that both sides promote good thinking, good morality, good health, and of that nature, like wellness and just positive things. But one side, like Christianity, says we do these things. None of us are perfect. We respond. We believe. We have faith, and on the basis of that, on the basis of faith and belief, and getting to know your Creator more through that Bible, through the Scriptures, through the New Testament, and Christ you serve, you fulfill the old law, the old Judaic law, even though you may not be a Jewish person, and you're in right standing with God if you so believe. So given that, you only have up to go. You only have up. Your only direction is up. How you doing? And so in comparison, you have secularism. You think good thoughts. And again, this is my general thought. I have a Christian moral bias and philosophical bias. I have just a bias there. But my assumption, I'm sorry, I'm being silly. But basically, I don't know the full experience to be an atheist because I'm not one. But I assume that atheism promotes good thinking, philanthropy, good morality at the time. That's relevant to the time. And I guess I'm feeling nervous because I'm like, no matter what I say, I'll get called out on it. In regards to atheism, because I don't have the full experience of atheism, and so I just feel like the no true Scotsman fallacy will always loom over my head. What's that? But I'm just thinking to myself, like, they're moral. They're not limited by a deity to do anything really. They say don't hurt people, have consent and stuff like that. And they don't follow a deity. Basically, they have good morals, and they don't have a deity. And that's just it. Like, at the end of the day, it's simply being an atheist is your movement without a supernatural authority over you. Again, and that could be good, that could be bad, but for some reason they lean toward the bad, they lean toward the good. I'm sorry, that was a Freudian slip, but they lean toward the good, and they deny the bad. They say, well, bad people, that's a mental illness, and maybe it is. I don't know. I personally don't know. But at the end of it, what matters a little more is Christianity. It has barriers. How you doing? It has its own barriers. Not a lot, but it has its own barriers. It promotes certain things, it denies certain things. Definitely a lot of things that you definitely have to read up, because the Bible is very contextual. It's very contextual, and to fully grasp it is to not say this is wrong. Let me tell people about it. It's like reading. It's diving into the book and reading it definitely like a historical document. Even if you don't believe that, it'd be best to do that, because if you read it like a historical document, you import yourself into a time, into a place, into a people, and a people group, and their point of view, and you say, this is what they were, this is how they thought, this is how it was said. And so therefore, I have a better understanding about what they say and what they mean in regards to these things. So at the end of it, that's my biggest, a very general perspective of differences. I'm sorry, this is very long. Excuse me, but I had to preface it. So I'm trying to get my again, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to disregard my previous expectations and just see what is it saying. Even expectations from experts, pastors and such. I'm just trying to simply read it and say, I just try to understand it for what it is. Is that will that be flawed because of the English interpretation? Maybe. Will that be flawed because of my lack of understanding regarding the text itself, historically speaking, narratively speaking? Perhaps. But I'm pretty sure I have confidence that the Bible is clear enough to say to say what it needs to say without me having to dive too deep. Now, of course, there's no problem with diving deep, but it's like I shouldn't have to reading this Bible. They say the words of God or the commandments are not burdensome. So if it's not, I shouldn't be burdened by reading it as best as I'm able to read it. So, understanding that, just I guess I just want to have a better understanding with it. How you doing? And that's my very general difference between Christianity and just secularism. Not too big of a difference. I guess the biggest difference is Christ himself, and in addition to Christ himself, the limitations that Christ imposed. But again, that's not a lot. It's not a lot. It's just a lot for people who want to preserve a certain way of living, and don't really want to change or find conflict with what is said. And that is not just regarding our topics of today. That is regarding even people's most personal motives, from selfishness, greed, pride, where they truly don't believe they're wrong, but the Bible itself says these things got to go. So